We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today. Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and with John Gibson. Morning, Gibbo.
Morning, nice to see you, my friend.
And you, mate, and you. And we've given Malcolm the week off. We're doing this for the next couple of weeks. We're going to alternate you guys, so we're going to have a little Q&A with the pair of you. The one with Malcolm went well, as you would imagine, last week, and some really good questions, which I'd never even heard the answers to. So it tells you the people watching certainly come up with the right recipe. So I'm hoping for the same again this morning. And don't forget as well, John and Malcolm will be at Gateshead Leisure Centre. They'll be there around about 7 o'clock on Sunday before the England game. It's free entry, and they're doing a great deal on pizza and a pint, I think, for a £5. But get yourself along there if you're in the Gateshead vicinity and you want to watch the match with the lads doing a pre-match build-up. But that'll start around about the 7:25 mark. But get yourself along to Gateshead Leisure Centre to see the guys. They'll be there for the first 3 England group games. But questions have already come in. We will come to them in a moment. I just want to get your views, John, on the first new signing of the summer campaign. And it's Lloyd Kelly from Bournemouth. Not an official unveiling yet. No sign of the shirt on the lad. But we did see him going into his medical yesterday, and it sounds like all went according to plan. So a left back, a left-sided centre-half, he can play in a little bit more of an advanced role. And I think as well, John, quite important, he's a captain of Bournemouth. So he's got that kind of leadership quality that Newcastle are going to lack if Kieran Trippier is going to go out the door.
I mean, he ticks so many boxes. I think it's a terrific signing. He's 6'3", which in defence and Trippier part we are very big defence, and that's good news. He's 6'3", he's quick, and that's important because I think our defences lack pace. If you can be critical at all of it, is it we lack pace. Kelly's got pace. He plays centre half, left back, which is terrific. He's 6'3", but good on the ball. We've had a horrible defensive record last season. We needed that strengthening. We got gazumped on by Chelsea on the kid from Fulham, so we didn't want that to happen again. He's got style. Lloyd Kelly comes out with the ball well. He's a leader, as you said. He's only 25 now, and he's already skippered Bournemouth, so his leadership qualities are there. He fits like a glove. I mean, he's even a free transfer, which with financial fair play is a huge advantage because we don't, my famous wiggle room, we don't have a lot of that with signings because of the cash restrictions. But his type of signing allows us to use money elsewhere. And bear in mind that Eddie Howe at Bournemouth bid £13 million to bring him to Bournemouth from Bristol a few years back, and he's developed greatly since that. So what he's really worth, into the 20 million, the 25 million bracket comfortably. So he's a good signing he's a terrific signing, not a good signing, but inevitably with a but, because there's always a but, ... And the but with Lloyd is we've got to pray that he has good health. I don't wish him good luck on the playing side because he doesn't need it. He's already proved his pedigree. He's done it in the Premier League, so he's not going to be found out by the pace of the Premier League. He's comfortable there. The only thing that's been poor is that he has been injury prone. I mean, last season he missed 17 games with 3 separate injuries. He missed 18 the season before. We've got to pray that is a thing of the past, because naturally we get worried. When it comes to injuries, we got a wonderful player from Bournemouth called Callum Wilson who had injury problems. This fella's a wonderful player from Bournemouth who's got injury problems. Pray God that they're behind us, because when you look back at last season, you would think the last thing we need to bring in is a player with injury problems, when we had Pope out, Willock out, Joe Linton out, Anderson out, Barnes out for so long. I mean, Botman and Lascelles will still be out till virtually Christmas. So we have had an injury problem. But I'm not emphasising that too much, because I'm hoping that's behind the boy. And he ticks 10 boxes out of 10. That's the one box where we don't wish him good luck. He doesn't need good luck. He's quality. We wish him good health, because if he can have good health, we've got some signing on our hands.
Yeah, 100%. Great to see a little bit of business done early, though, by Newcastle. That's a key as well. Anything else in the pipeline then, John? Because we've been quite heavily with the goalkeeper. Do you think that's a possibility that we'll see that happen in the next week or so? And do you think that's a good signing?
James Trafford.
Yeah,
yes, I think it'll happen. I think it's almost a foregone conclusion. I always say almost, because we know what happened with the boy from Fulham when Chelsea nicked in at the last moment. But I would expect James Trafford to be the goalkeeper Newcastle sign, with Dubravka almost certainly being allowed to leave. And good luck to him. He's 35. He's done terrific for us over years and years and years of service. He won North East Footballer of the Year way back, so he will leave. Be a super move if he got Celtic, by the way, for him. Ideal timing, like it was for Joe Hart. But I think James Trafford will come. And again, like Kelly, I think he's got massive pluses and one reservation. But I mean, tell me somebody outside of Messi or Ronaldo and Pomp that didn't have one reservation. I mean, his background is absolutely terrific. Top pedigree. He was brought up at Manchester City. He's a Cumbrian kid from a farming stock who signed for Carlisle, but left at about 12-year-old and went to Man City. He's played for England at every age group level there is, and looked like a star of the future. I know we've had that before with Freddie Woodman, who didn't quite make it all the way to the stars. So we've had that before. But this guy did get in Southgate's Euro 2024 squad ahead of Pope before he was one of the ones that was culled, and that was going to happen because he's so young. The slight reservation, well, he's 21, which is very inexperienced, and being in a team that was struggling, Burnley last season, he started making a couple of mistakes. As a young goalkeeper, you were going to do that in a side constantly under pressure, and Company took him out for the last 10 games, dropped him, if you like, and left him out to sort of let him remain a confident player that he is. Now, when I look at the deal, Steve, the one thing I would say is that I believe that Trafford is being bought at the moment for the middle future. I think at 21-year-old, he's going to be the one that takes over from Pope and is the goalkeeper. I would say he's something like Livramento and Hall, who were brought in early doors. They weren't going to go straight in the first team, but having to come through, and that's terrific. I think Trafford's one of those. He will not put the pressure on Pope on the first day like the Valencia keeper would have done. Valencia keeper is much more experienced, is a full international, been playing regularly La Liga. He would have competed from day one with Pope for the first team shirt. I think this fella will understudy Pope initially, and then will challenge, etc., etc. But he's not He is the cheaper version of the La Liga guy, which allows us a bit more money kept in the pot for the other signings we need, and we do need them. Centre forward, right-sided centre half, right winger. But I think that he'll do a smashing job for us. He'll not challenge Pope for the opening day of the season or for the first half dozen matches, because he's 21, for goodness sake, and he was pulled out of the situation at Burnley. But long term, everybody I speak to says this kid's going to be good. I know they said that about Freddie Woodman, and it didn't quite work out for Freddie. But I think this guy will do a job for us. We need him, because after Pope, with Dubravka going to go and Karius already gone, we've only got Gillespie, so we needed a goalkeeper in desperately.
Yeah, we did. Mohamed Valley's been linked. Barry's just come in the chat there. He's saying, could you tell us why that deal for him failed? I've got to be honest, I don't believe that Newcastle really are, we get linked with so many players. And I mean, Barry's doing a list at the moment, John. He does it for me every transfer window. He enjoys doing it. 122 players Newcastle have been linked with already. A lot of that's down to agents, isn't it, John? And I don't even know if we've been looking at Mohamed Ashwali or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's when you're on the inside, like press-wise, you get a little bit more steerage, and a lot of them are agents popping up because they want their players to be wanted by other clubs, so that it keeps the pot stirred. We did show a genuine interest in the Valencia keeper. The problem was that they decided they could. Valencia decided they could make a lot of money out of him, and maybe they will. And they decided to screw whoever come in from. And at the moment the money started getting too big, we immediately turned our back and said, we're not going to go into an auction. There's this alternative choice, Trafford, who looks at top quality goalkeeper. We're going to go there. I'm a little bit disappointed, because in a wonderful world, the other guy is much more advanced down the road than Trafford right now. But of course, Trafford can become what he's expected to become. And I think he's a bit of a Lewis Hall and a Livramento, as I said. When he first arrives here on the opening day, he will not dominate the goalkeeping situation next season. But neither did Livramento dominate right back or Hall dominate left back, and the season just ended. But they probably will this season, and I think Trafford falls into that category. I mean, I must admit, there was a bit of me would have liked the ideal world of the Valencia keeper coming in. I didn't think it was going to be a starter, because he's a lot of money. And do we want to pay a lot of money for a keeper when we can get another one that's potentially top draw for a much easier price? Because if we're going to buy a centre forward, Steve, it doesn't matter whether he's backup or starting. Centre forwards cost dough, and so the money that we've saved on Kelly, who's a £25 million player, and on the keeper by not going for the Valencia one, will help top up that pot, because we do need a centre forward. We banked on that for a while. The club also want a right winger and a right-sided centre half, because they didn't get Tossen. So, yeah, I can see why we've gone for this keeper. I can see the potential in him. But we genuinely flirted with the Valencia keeper, but we always suspected that they would play hardball, and if they did, we were going to walk away, and that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, okay. There was a question, quite a few questions coming in. Let's move on to the questions from everything, and people's opinions as well. Les says, one thing with Kelly, not a negative, but Bournemouth fans said his own game suffered when he was captain. So while he lead by example, in my opinion, he could suffer if given the armband anytime soon. Yeah, and I'm not sure he'd come in as a captain, but I think it's a voice which probably will be welcome in the dressing room once he gets his feet under the table. Having lost Richie, for example, Paul Dummett, part of the furniture behind the scenes, and we need new players in. There's no doubt about it. Benny's question, although it did get cut off, we can use the first part. He says, question for John: which scenario would you prefer if money is tight? Keep Callum Wilson for the final year of his contract, sign a right winger, but no striker. Now, I don't know what the second part of his question is, but would you prefer to keep Wilson for the final year of his contract, John, and would you prefer to sign a right winger? Because I still think Newcastle will, I think they'll be careful what to spend in this transfer window, like they have been in many of them. But what would you like to keep Wilson?
They've got to be careful what to spend because we don't want any points docked. And until Manchester City have a go at the Premier League, and if they win their fight, that will change the landscape totally and completely, and we will be able to spend what we want. In an ideal world, and tell me, Steve, when an ideal world actually pans out as an ideal world, it doesn't. In an ideal world, I would sell Callum Wilson, I would sell Miggy Almiron, and I would sign a centre forward and an outside right in an ideal world. If we keep Wilson, only if you look at Wilson on an ordinary day when he is fully fit and raring to go and bursting out of the blocks, he's a terrific centre forward. But if we keep Wilson for another year, we're going to be in exactly the same position as we were in the season ended. How many games is he going to be available to us to start? Very, very few. And at the end of that season, his contract's up and he goes for nothing. And of course, he's a year older and his fitness record is bad, even worse. So there's a risk in keeping him. I mean, if you're not going to buy a centre forward or you can't get one within your price range, then you've got to keep him. But in an ideal world, I would cash in on Wilson because I think he is at that stage. And I think Callum would consider going. I think he does realise the writing is on the wall here. If the club progresses, I think he would be open to go. In an ideal world, I would get as much as I could for Wilson and as much as I could for Almiron. And I would buy in those two positions. And what's fascinating, of course, is the kid that's been at Feyenoord. Minter, however you pronounce it, the kid at Feyenoord. Now, if he scored a pile of goals at Feyenoord, their manager's gone over to Liverpool. He's supposed to have flirted with the idea of signing him for Liverpool. I don't believe that, really. I think that was a non-starter. 2 and 2 made 4, but no, it made 5. But the kid has got potential and he's a right winger and he's blisteringly fast. Let's look at him pre-season as well. But in an ideal world, I would sell Wilson, but I'm being clever because before I sold Wilson, I would make certain I had a centre forward up my sleeve. Because if you don't, you're worse off than you are now. But how much? It's an awful thing to say, Steve, but how much can we rely on Callum this coming season? And that is a problem, believe you me. Because when you're working with one centre forward and then mixing and matching, can we play Anderson there? Can we play Gordon there? Can we play Harvey Barnes there? That's not ideal if we're trying to get in Europe.
No, definitely not. Part B of the question from Benny was, of
All
course,
right.
You already asked it. He says, "Was sell Wilson, sign a striker, but don't sign a right winger, but play Minty." So you already preempted what he was going to say, mate, which is great. Okay, another question this time from Geordie Tumbalite. He says, "John, do you think Newcastle will sign Chris Rigg in the next 12 months from Sunderland?" Thank you.
Hey, Geordie Toon, I certainly would love to think so. The kid is from a Newcastle United family. He's quality. He will not stay at Sunderland. I mean, I'm talking long term. He may stay at Sunderland for next season. Depends who the manager comes in, etc., etc. But the more you look good, the more clubs want you, and that is the worry. And believe you me, if Rigg becomes available or wants to leave, there will be more than Newcastle interested in, and that will be a complication. And it doesn't automatically follow because because his family are Newcastle United supporters, that he'll want to Newcastle above everybody else. I mean, Bobby Clark's dad, Lee, is a Newcastle United legend and a Newcastle supporter completely, but the kid still signed for Liverpool because you've got to think of your own career. So it's not automatically come here, but he's a good kid and I would love him to come here. And his leanings are towards Newcastle United, but it would depend how many other big hitters, Liverpool, Bayern, Munich, all these people have been mentioned. That would be competition for us. But I mean, with due respect to Sunderland, I don't think he'll necessarily move this summer, but I think he'll move in the short term without question, because Sunderland, as long as they're in the Championship, won't be good enough to hold on to a kid like that. And I would like him to end up here without a shadow of doubt.
Morning, Philip. He says, question to John. 2 days ago, we last won a trophy 55 years ago. When can you see us winning another? I think we could win either cup next season or both, he says.
Well, as I famously said on this yonks ago, I'm the only reporter still working that actually has seen Newcastle win a meaningful trophy, which was the 1969 First Cup. And I've cancelled dying because I believe we'll win it again. We'll win a trophy again. And I'm going to be here. And not only alive, I'm going to report on it because I'm going to have the joy of completing the circle after we've waited for so long. The fun thing is, and I've just done an article in the Chronicle, Steve, the fun thing is when I came back from the smoke and up to God's own country, and the Chronicle said, come and join us. And my remit was to cover Newcastle United and to cover England in the major tournaments. Wonderful. What a job. Paradise. The first few months, it was the early summer of 1966. The first few months I saw England win the World Cup, 1966, reporting on the World Cup. By 1968-69, I was embarking with Newcastle in Europe, and they ended up winning the First Cup. So the minute I come back to North East, England win the World Cup and Newcastle win the First Cup, I think I'm going to be reporting on success for years and years and years to come. Neither of them have won an argument since. Neither have won a trophy since. Now we're sitting here and we think Newcastle might win a trophy because of new owners and a new manager, and England might win a trophy because they've got all these attacking players and it may be Euro. My question to you is, who will win the trophy first? Will England in the Euros, or will Newcastle next season in the domestic trophies? And yes, I do think Newcastle will win a trophy. I think it's just a matter of when, not if. Will it be next season or will it be the season after? I think they'll win a trophy, and they may well win a trophy before England win a trophy. Because, with England, we've sat through it all, haven't we? I mean, I look at England, they're starting this weekend, Steve. I look at England, I remember 1990 when we had Gascoigne and Waddle and Beardsley, and under Bobby Robson, we've got the semi-finals of the World Cup, just fell off the mountain at the last minute. I look at the Shearer, the European side under Venables, Shearer, and we had all the various entertainers. They're also from Newcastle. They also played in that side, didn't win anything. I think of the golden generation with Lampard and Scholes and Rio Ferdinand and Rooney. We were going to win something, didn't. And we're going to win something again now with all the attackers. Pray God that both teams, England and Newcastle, win something very quickly, but especially Newcastle. That's much more important. Let Newcastle win something. And yes, I think we will. It's just when.
Peter Stott goes back in time. He says, hi, Steve and John. John, I've asked this before. The First Cup was one club, one city. So how did we play Rangers in the semi-final?
Well, because one club, one city only applied in that competition. So in other words, Rangers were the only team from Glasgow because Celtic were in the big cup. In that competition, if a team qualified like Chelsea, nobody else from London could qualify and play in that competition, which was the second European competition. You could only have one club from one city in the First Cup competition. Rangers were the only team in it from Glasgow, because Celtic weren't in the First Cup. I mean, I can't remember, but I presume they were in the European Cup that year. But that's how we played Rangers. But there wasn't going to be another English club like 2 from Birmingham and 3 from London, and that wasn't allowed.
Yeah, okay. DXK says, a question for John. Do you agree that Lewis Hall is a superior left-back to Lloyd Kelly? And if so, where would you get Kelly into the starting 11? That's a tough question, isn't it? And I mean, I guess Kelly does play left side of centre half, doesn't he, John, as well? That's the
I mean, it's very tough to answer. I mean, the simple answer is that short term, he'll play left-sided centre half, I would think, even though we've got Byrne haven't played in that position. He can play on the right side of a back four as opposed to a five, so that is always a possibility. We honestly don't know until we see them every week whether Hall or Kelly would be the best left back. The only thing I do know is that it won't be Dan Byrne that's the best left back. But we can't tell whether it should be, and we can't tell the preference if whether we think Kelly is more comfortable as a left-sided centre half or a left back. I suspect the left-sided centre half. I would think he'll go into the team at the start because of the injury to Botman. I think he'll go in the team at the start, not at left back, but as a left-sided centre half. But if Hall found it hard to hack it, or heaven forbid got injured, we have a natural left back in Kelly that can go there rather than switch Byrne into an uncomfortable position or have to rely on Target, who I think, again, Newcastle would sell in the summer if they can.
Robert Maltman, being a bit cheeky. Good evening, Robert. Good afternoon, Robert. Sorry, he is the guy who designs all of our flyers. Big shout out to Robert. So since you've been reporting Newcastle and England haven't won a thing, Gibbo, are you a jinx?
No, Robert, I'm not a jinx. If we remember, the last time England won anything and Newcastle won anything, I was reporting on them. 66 and 69. So I'm the only consistent link in the world. And that's why they're going to win again and complete the circle. And I'm going to be there again reporting on it. I know it's a flip question. It is a lot of fun, but I mean, you cannot believe, Steve, can you, that England's not won a salty single thing and Newcastle United have not won a salty single thing since the swinging 60s. Crazy, I mean, man. That is absolutely phenomenal. It is really, really crazy. And that's got to end. Pray God, that it's going to end this year with England winning the Euros and Newcastle lashing through the early League Cup rounds and looking forward to Wembley.
Paul Kinson, good morning. He's on Twitter watching us today. If you're on LinkedIn, Facebook or Twitter this morning, feel free to jump over to YouTube, open YouTube up, search nufc matters and hit the subscribe button. We still do 7 shows a week. Any news on how Tonali's getting on, John? Paul asks.
Well, I think he's trying to recover from inadvertently wandering into Gillespie's stag night abroad. Did you see that?
I did, yeah.
Gillespie's having a stag night and suddenly he finds Tonali's there on a totally different thing. And I tell you what, if that's Tonali's introduction to Newcastle United in full flight when they're enjoying themselves, it'll take him a little while to recover from that. He's got to be getting his head up now and believing he can see the end of the road, can't he? And it's been a long, long road and a long, barren road with seemingly nothing at the end of it. He can start really stepping up his training when they come back pre-season. He can play in friendlies behind closed doors, which I think without question Newcastle will arrange because you want him to play in those sort of games so he can hit the ground a little bit when he comes back in August, back into the fray. I mean, I hate the phrase, you'll be like a new signing. Every time somebody has an injury, they're going to be like a new signing. But this guy will be like a new signing because he hardly played prior to his ban. And it's a £52 million signing. When we talk about Newcastle now, we still talk about restrictions on the amount of money spent on a single player. There's only sort of been Isak and him where it's been big, big bucks. So he's a huge investment. And that's got to come good for Newcastle this season. And you've got to believe that it will. What I'm going to find out absolutely fascinating is how they use him. Did they use him as a 10? Did they use him as a 6? Did they use him as a defensive shield? Did they have him as an attacker? The way he operates in midfield. And, of course, it can also release Bruno to go forward that much more if Tonali sits. So it's going to be fascinating to see how they get him into that midfield in the type of role he plays. Obviously, he's going to go in. He's a £52 million player. He's going to go in. Once he's up to speed, he'll start off on the bench. but he's going to go in. But it's going to be fascinating to see how they use it.
Yeah, it certainly will be. A few reminders from people watching today, John, as well, that you're not a jinx. Because Robert, of course, said, you potentially could be a little bit of a jinx because we haven't won anything. Don't forget, John, as Barry says, we won the Japan Cup in 1982. And, of course, we won the Intertoto Cup, although it looked more like a plaque. The Intertoto Cup final, of course, in 2004.
And I don't want you to forget either, Steve, that we have won at least twice the Northumberland Senior Cup against Blythe Spartans in Heating Stannington. And, let's not take away those victories. Hey, we won the Anglo-Italian and we won the Texaco Cup, which is Anglo-Scottish, a couple of times. But I don't include those. I mean, under Mr. Ashley, we actually won the second division championship a couple of times, but I wasn't wanting to get on a bus and go racing around the city centre with the second division trophy on the top of it. I would prefer to win something that's better than an egg cup.
Yeah, me too. Okay, we are halfway through the show. Keep your questions coming. We'll try to get through as many as we can in the second half, but here are the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins. You can find their website at skipsandbins.com. Contact us, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to United Group Travel. They are the Travel and Tourism Award winners in 2024. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. A big thanks to Media Arts. You can find them at www.media-arts.co.uk. And don't forget, we are a podcast. You can find us on iTunes or Spotify or other podcast providers. If you want to help the channel grow, then hit the like button, the little thumb underneath the video, click share and share to your social media, or join the channel for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to take out a one-off payment membership, go to nufcmatters.com and hit membership. And for a £25 fee, you get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. You can also put a smartphone over the top of this QR code. It'll take you straight there. And don't forget, we also help the food bank on this channel. nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is a website where you can make a virtual donation today.
And don't forget, we do have the end of season 2 coming up at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Supermac on stage with Gibbo, Ask George, and the Long Sands in aid of Dementia Matters. Tickets at tenner from nufcmatters.com or newcastlelegends.com. And Gibbo and Rob Lee will be on at the City Hall. That is on the 2nd of August. And tickets are £15 from ticketmaster.co.uk. Or if you search Rob Lee on Wowchat, you'll be able to buy some tickets on there. And as I said at the start of the show, Gibbo and Supermac will be at the Gateshead Leisure Centre for the England games. Pre-match only. Get yourself along to support the lads if you can. It's free entry at Gateshead Leisure Centre for the Euros chat. Okay, lots of questions coming in. Going to try and get through as many names as possible. Johnny Allen, good morning. He says, question for John. If Bruno, Tonali and Joe Linton are the 3 midfielders, how would he set them up, do you think? I think when Bruno and Tonali are next to each other, they cancel a lot of each other's strengths out.
Yeah, well, we were just saying, weren't we, before the ad break, Steve, it's going to be interesting to see the role that Eddie Howe gives Tonali. Because Tonali can play both as a sitter, a number 6, and as an attacker. Now, how would you use him? I think there might be a case for Tonali sitting, allowing Bruno to get forward with Joe Linton ahead of him. Because yes, I understand what the guy's on about, because Tonali and Bruno can cancel each other out if they're not given a definite role that is very different from each other. One should sit and the other should go. And I think Bruno, what did he get? 7 goals last season or whatever? I think Bruno, Tonali scored the first goal of last season, if you remember. It took him 6 minutes on his debut to score against Villa. He can't finish. But I think he might be the sitter using Bruno to go with Joe Linton. Does a bit of both, doesn't he? He's got a tiger in his tank. He can kill the opposition and he can get forward. But it'll be fascinating as to how they use him. And I'm waiting to see that, because you could flip it and make Bruno sit and let Tonali go. But I think Bruno is so keen on going. That's the job he wants to do. He wants to tack the edge of the opposition penalty area and get off shots. He wants to do that. So let him do that and let Tonali sit. They can alternate. I remember, if you go back far enough, the first side Joe Harvey built which was the promotion side, just after he arrived here, they come up, I think, 65 from the second division. He had 3 across the midfield end, and Anderson, McGrath and Eiley. Now, Anderson and Eiley were exactly the same players. They both attacked, neither could defend, etc., etc. How on earth did they play together? Joe was clever. He let one go, the other dropped in and sat. If the other went, Ando come in and sat. And it actually worked. And it had no reason why it should work, but it did. If you remember, further up the field, when we signed Alan Shearer, they said Shearer and Les Ferdinand couldn't play together because they're 2 target men. You can only play one of them, etc. Couldn't play together. That season they were together. They scored a barrel load of goals, 40, 50 goals between them, and they missed a lot of games through injury. So if the players are quality, you can dovetail them into a side. And that's what Howe gets the big bucks for. He's got to decide what he does with Bruno and what he does with Tonali, how they alternate to get the best out of the two of them. And that's going to be fascinating. And we'll see a bit of that in pre-season, but we'll certainly, we won't actually. We won't, because Tonali's not available, is he? We'll see it as Tonali comes off the bench and starts playing there. But I would suspect he might sit and Bruno might go.
Yep. Okay. Lots of questions coming in now. I'm going to try to give everyone a chance of asking a question, because we've got lots coming in now. And I noticed some of you have asked 2, 3, 4 questions. So Stephen Anderson, I'll come to you next. Hi, John. Will we ever see you in a press conference? I'd love to see you give some hard and interesting questions to Eddie Howe, as some of the questions can be too easy from others.
Well said, Stephen. I would love to be in there if invited. I think that I'm possibly not invited because I would be an awkward cuss, maybe. It's a very different thing from my day, Stephen. My day, when you did following Newcastle, I meant literally full time. Everybody went in a press conference. Everybody got their hand up and asked a question. Now, if I asked a question of Joe Harvey and I didn't like the reply, I was capable of saying to Joe, sorry, I was allowed to say to Joe, wait a minute, Joe, you haven't answered that. The question I asked was this: you're fudging. What's your answer to that? Nowadays, you get your chance to ask 3 questions, I think, or something of that nature, to Eddie, and then it's the next person's turn. And he asks, and then it's the next person's turn. You can't sort of come back at Eddie and say, wait a minute, you haven't answered that, because Eddie's a master of saying a lot and saying absolutely nothing. He's absolutely the master of answering a question, but telling you absolutely nothing. But also, in my day, you used to get a lot of one-on-ones with the manager. I used to walk up to St. James's Park every morning at 9:30, 10 o'clock, and get Joe and stand with Joe for about 20 minutes, just the 2 of us. And I could ask him anything I wanted, and I could hammer home a point, and he could hammer back at me. And that sort of personal situation doesn't happen now. And I would love to sit down with Eddie because I think he's a terrific guy, he's a shrewd guy, he's a clever guy, and I would like to just try to be persistent enough that when he gives one of these wonderfully evasive answers, which is very impressive, but actually is set now, I could say, well, I enjoyed listening to that, but now you could possibly answer the question. It would be good, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
No, C. Dan Smith, good morning. He says, John, do you see Eddie taking the England job if Southgate goes?
No, I see him taking the England job sometime in his career if you can look forward ahead like that, because it's very difficult to look forward. I think he would be absolutely perfect from the FA's point of view. He looks the part. He's a diplomat. He's clever at keeping everybody on side. He's wonderful at press conferences, at talking and not giving away secrets. His detailed work on the training ground is marvellous. I think the FA would not be able to find somebody better. But I don't think that Eddie would leave the project that is Newcastle United right at this moment before he wins things as a manager, because he can win things as a manager here. And I think he wants to do that. And also, he's a young man. He loves the day-to-day involvement. There's too much time where nothing happens and you don't see players when you're the England manager. I think the England manager is for a man later in life. And I think he would look at his situation and want to manage England someday, but that day's not now. And if Southgate goes at the end of this tournament, I don't think for one moment Eddie Howe would take the England job.
No, I don't think he's ready for it. And I mean, surely that would be the thing that he would aspire to when he started off on the managerial track. But no, he's got a job to do at Newcastle at this moment in time. Good morning, Ian. He says, best game you have ever seen, Gibbo?
Ooh, what a great question that is, because there's been hundreds of them. The best team I've ever seen was Brazil 1970, and when I went out, England were defending the World Cup, having won it in '66, and it was in Mexico, and it was the Brazilian famous five up front with Rivellino and Tostão and Gerson and Pelé and Jairzinho were the front five. That's the greatest team, and you could pick any match. I was privileged to see Brazil play because they were in England's group. I saw them play every single match bar the quarter-final when I was with England in Lyon, where we lost to Germany. But I saw Brazil in every single game they played when they won it. And you could pick any of their games from that. It was absolutely sensational. From Newcastle's point of view, it's very awkward because do you pick the greatest result or the greatest game? I mean, I adored Barcelona 3-2 in the Champions League with Tino's hat-trick. I also adored Paris Saint-Germain last season. No, that was a bit tasty. But I've seen an awful lot of terrific games with terrific memories. But they're coloured, aren't they, mainly? They're coloured by results. You know, when you say you watch a good game, Steve, you've never watched a good game when Newcastle have contributed wonderfully well, but happen to have lost 4-3. Yeah. It's not a great game to you then, is it?
No.
I mean, we did that in entertainers' years with KK. The greatest game played in the Premier League was supposed to be Liverpool 4, Newcastle 3. It was voted the greatest game played in the Premier League.
Yeah.
You won't find a Geordie that'll tell you it's the greatest game ever played in the Premier League because the result stinks. So it is very odd, but I've been privileged to see wonderful games. I mean, Brazil 1970, nothing surpassed that with Pelé, the absolute glorious, wonderful top man. And Newcastle in the Champions League, Tino and Paris Saint-Germain. Wonderful.
Okay. LJG on Twitter, Nightwaves, says, out of the big six, John, can you name a team from any league that you hate us to play because no matter what, they always seem to get a result? He says, for him, it was Southampton until recently.
Hey, I tell you what, there's some corkers coming in, isn't it? I mean, the big six, what always happened with me, we never seemed to get results against Liverpool. These are the big six, Liverpool and Manchester United in my time. Not now, because I think we beat them 3 times prior to the last game against them. So we beat Man. But I mean, we went at time. I saw Newcastle win the game after Hereford, beat Manchester United there with Law Best and Charlton. And then we didn't win again then till Cabai. About 30 years, was it, till Cabai got the winner at Old Trafford. We didn't beat them at Old Trafford. There's games that irritate me, like Crystal Palace in the past have irritated me because every time we play them, it's a doer game, if you like. I don't like playing Hereford. The last two times we've played Hereford, I hate it because they got to draw up here and beat me down there and they won on league. But there's not I mean, I love playing Aston Villa. Can you imagine saying that? They've just qualified for Europe in 4th top and we beat them home and away 5-1 and 3. So, you know, but there's no team I fear. I hated playing Sunderland before we played them in the Cup last season because we'd gone about 6 games and never beaten them. But I was delighted to get them in the Cup because I thought we'll tuck the Mackhams up this time. And sure enough, it was a stroll in the park. No, I'm going in at Hereford. Hate playing Hereford because in 40 years, we haven't beaten them.
Why did we play in red, says Phil? Just asking about the Hereford game. Why did we play in red? Was that a away strip?
No, it wasn't. I'm trying to remember why that was. They were a sort of, I mean, I'm trying to remember. They were a black and white team, if you know what I mean. Not stripes.
Right. Yeah.
Black trousers and black shorts and white tops. So I had to wear some of the strip. And I suppose we had so many strips in the bag that needed washing. But because we spent an eternity there, you know, the game kept getting put off. And I remember going to Cecil G's, the men's shop in Hereford. We spent so much time there. We packed an overnight bag, went to Hereford and stayed about a fortnight. The players, Supermac and me and all we were all going down to Cecil G's to buy underpants and a new shirt and all that because we needed stuff washing because we put up camp there. We actually lost the 3rd round replay on the day when everybody else was playing in the 4th round. So that's what that was all about.
All right, then we'll go. That's an answer to that. Magpies Unite just talking about Eddie Howe. We've just discussed that actually. You are a little bit late to join on the show, but Scott Wilson running a story in the Northern Echo. He says saying that the FA will seek formal permission to speak to Eddie. They can do all they want, I guess, on that. But Newcastle, I don't think will.
I mean, as I said in the answer, he's ideal from the FA's point of view.
Of course, he is.
I think the FA would. You know, he's absolutely. I mean, Cloughie would be too much of a handful for the FA and was too much of a handful. Oh, I don't need that. Oh, quite me. I need that like all that. He's such a wonderful diplomat and terrific. He ticks all the boxes, Eddie, apart from one box, and that is, does he want it yet? And I honestly think he doesn't.
And the person who does and who has knocked back every single job and who is the same kind of manager as Howe, in so many ways, is Potter. And I think it'll be Potter, the next England manager. He's literally sat and waited for this opportunity because he's got a feeling that the job's going to come up. I would not be surprised to see Potter as England manager. Got about 10 minutes left. Geordie Tumbalay says, John, we often see you with a gin and tonic. Which gin is your favourite?
The one that's in my hand at the time.
There we go.
the one that I'm given at the time. I mean, I often drink Gordon's, but it's like anything. I mean, I often have a white wine at night just to be sociable, you understand. But if it's Pinot Grigio, Chardonnay or whatever, it makes a slight difference, but not too much. I just say gin and tonic and then say thank you very much.
I'll come back to this one, Geordie Tumbalay, because we could finish the show with that one. I'm just going to try and get any quick fire questions that we can get. Barry says, Iniacho has been released on a free from Leicester. He's 28. Would you take a risk, you two? I'd say no.
And the answer is no. And if he's only 28, which should be the height of his career, and he's been let go by a championship side because that's where they were last season, then I don't think he's for us. I accept that a free transfer, having just got Kelly, the more free transfers we can get, the better, because it leaves money to spend elsewhere. But I don't think that you should take somebody just because he's a free transfer. As far as a striker is concerned, I think Newcastle will look to do what they've done with James Trafford. I think they look to get a young striker.
Maybe.
Like Trafford's 21 coming in. They'll get a striker 21, 22 that's got real potential, might be willing to sit there behind Isaac, but when he's called on, is fit and ready to go, and long term will be the answer. I don't think we'll get a 28-year-old, not a free transfer guy, but a guy that's going to cost 40, 50, 60 million. I don't think we'll do that. I think we'll get a James Trafford type of centre forward.
Yeah, I mean, Solanke was linked. Lots of people asking about that. Robert Malcolm was saying what happened to the Dominic Solanke rumours. Calvert-Lewin, I know that's somebody that Eddie Howe definitely fancies at Newcastle. I mean, he did play a lot more games last season. He didn't set the world alight with goals. It has to be said. Sesko's another. Tony's not coming to Newcastle, but I would go for Tammy Abraham, John. Tammy Abraham would be looking for an opportunity to come back to the Premier League, and I've put his name forward a couple of times.
Yeah, Solanke is a typical man that Eddie Howe would love. And he's like Kelly, Lloyd Kelly, who he's getting. He brought Solanke from Liverpool to Bournemouth, and then he's blossomed. He would love, but Eddie's saying privately, Solanke's too much dough. We can't afford Solanke. I don't want Calvert-Lewin. I don't care how many games he might have played last season. Blinking heck, we're going to replace Wilson with a Croc from Everton. Please don't do that. I mean, we're taking a chance on Kelly because he's worth a chance and he's a super talent. This other guy, he strains a muscle if he combs his hair, the Everton fella. I mean, we don't want another one of those, so I wouldn't have him. Tony's not gonna come here, and I don't particularly want him to come here. It's interesting to say Tammy Abraham because he would fit a pattern, and I would not be adverse to that. I think it'll be a young man, and it might even be as young as the Trafford situation, and as inexperienced as the Trafford situation, but to know and believe, honestly, he will develop into some player and would sit comfortably behind Isaac initially, as Trafford will behind Pope.
John, other than winning a cup, is it a must for Eddie to get in the Champions League next season, says Jason?
I've got to say yes, without wanting to heap pressure on Eddie. This is his ideal opportunity, isn't it? Because the question I would like to ask every Newcastle United fan, would you prefer us to win one of the two domestic cups at Wembley or get in the Champions League from fourth top? Because that is a real genuine question, because that would tear at my heart, because I want us to win a cup and get the jinx off our back. Getting in the Champions League is so romantic and so wonderful, but it's still not silverware, and that still adds another year without silverware, etc., etc. I'm talking about going to Wembley and winning. I'm not talking about going to Wembley and losing like we did in the Carabao Cup final. That would be interesting. But Eddie hasn't got the extra problem of games in Europe. He's got a free run at 3 competitions this year. And we've certainly got to get in Europe. If we didn't get in Europe again, like we didn't get in Europe this season, that would be an unmitigated disaster. Back to back, when we haven't got the extra fixes, it's a chance to get into Europe. Aston Villa did it while still flirting with one of the minor European competitions. They finished 4th. We are fighting them, and we're fighting Emery, who was almost here. We would have to look and aim for 4th without a shadow of a doubt. But I'd ask you, Steve, as a punter, would you, and if you could only have one or the other, would you take winning a trophy in a final at Wembley or getting in the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want both, but if you've got to
Course,
choose between the
course.
two, you want to win a trophy, don't you? You want to win a trophy,
Yeah.
100%. You want to see that trophy being lifted. I'm going to go back to Geordie Toontalk's question. He had two. This was the first one. Bacon sandwiches is his topic. Brown sauce or red sauce, John?
Got to be brown.
There we go. And his other question was, I'm from the Joe Harvey days. What's your favourite story from Joe, Gibbo?
Well, I mean, there's so many. He's such a wonderful, wonderful guy, and told stories terrific. And one of the real interesting ones, when we got back in the first division as it was then, having put that side together, I mentioned Anderson, McGrath, and Eiley, half back line as it was called in those days. We took the championship of the second division. We went up into the first division, which is where Newcastle belong, which is where they belonged when Joe was skipper and winning the FA Cup. And we were always in the first division. We're back in the first division. Opening day of the season. We're home. I think it was to Forest. It doesn't matter who the opposition was. And there's a bit of nerves about and a bit of excitement, and it's all mixing together. And then the dressing room, and I went out with the boys afterwards for a little gargle, and they were telling me, you know, the buzzer goes in the dressing room to tell you, right, it's time to get down in the tunnel. The referee buzzer goes, and you go in the tunnel, and then out you go. And the buzzer went, so Bob picks up the ball. Bob Moncur puts it under his arm. Clock is just behind him, just about to go through the door. And Joe says, "Hey, lads, hey, just a minute," he says. "Hold on a minute." And Bob thought, "Oh, quite, here's a last-minute thing. Make certain you're tight on them in midfield and make certain you don't let somebody run off the back of your, Bob, and Cloggy, the swinger's a bit nippy, etc., etc." And Joe now said, poised, turned round, all looking at Joe, and he said, "Whatever happens out there, don't let them panic into playing football." And everybody burst out laughing. And that was typical Joe. And he said, "Go on, bugger off." He said, "And buy the bairn a pair of shoes." Because that's what he used to say when he was the captain in Newcastle, when you were getting peanuts a day, but they got a bonus to win. He used to say, "Come on, lads, let's go out and get the bairn a pair of shoes," which was the bonus money. And that was Joe, and a wonderful, wonderful counter. And we've just had the anniversary, haven't we, of 50 odd years since 55, I think, since Newcastle won the first cup. It was won on his birthday as well, you know. So it was a 55th, it was the anniversary of his birthday as well. So wonderful memories, Joe. You should have a statue, mate. You've got a plaque. God bless you for everything you did for us, because by Jove, as a captain and as a manager, the best of the best.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. We've got time to squeeze maybe one more in. Les said, what does Gibbo make of the latest Bruno rumours about City activating the release clause?
I think journalists need to have stories. And having been a journalist myself, I can understand that. We're going to get that every year. You know, when you have good players, we're going to, you know, if you score 25 goals, everybody's going to say, where's Isaac going? Is he going to Arsenal? Is he going to where's Bruno going? 100 million, Man City will take him. And when you consider that they took Grealish for 100 million, I think Bruno's less problem than Jack is, because Jack is a problem to rein in, I would suggest. So there's plenty of money around. I just believe that the guy at this moment is honestly happy at Newcastle and believes in what he's bought into and is not agitating to go. And I don't think somebody will hit the release clause before the deadline at the end of the month. I hope not, because you keep your good players, you keep Isaac and you keep Gordon and you keep Bruno, and you buy other good players, and you sell your fringe ones, you sell Almir and you sell Wilson if you've got to sell somebody, because you don't get anywhere by selling your best. Yeah. You get places by keeping your best and adding to them.
Great show, as always. Quick one, John, just a quick prediction on the England game. Obviously, we'll be covering it at Gateshead Leisure Centre this Sunday. Thoughts on the first game? It's a tough one. Mitrovic is in it'd probably be waiting to surprise Newcastle. But what's your thoughts on the game?
I'm certain Mitro will be relishing the idea of being able to do something against England. Look, I mean, in the Champions League, we got the group of death, didn't we? We got the group of death. I mean, the three teams in with us were top draw. This is the group of hope. England have got the group of hope. Serbia, followed by Denmark, followed by Slovenia. We must qualify for that, for goodness sake. We've got to qualify for that. Let's talk about England winning the competition. Before we lost Iceland, that was a bit of a dampener, but that can be just a blip. I think, you know what, England to a certain extent remind me of Newcastle United at the moment, Steve, i.e. they can score a pile of goals, they've got wonderful attacking players, but the defence is dodgy. That was us last season. We can score a lot of goals, but our defence is dodgy. England go into this tournament exactly the same way. But I look at Kane, I look at Bellingham, I look at Saka, I look at Rice, I look at Walker, and I look at Gordon and Palmer. Now, we've got enough there to take care of Serbia. I think we'll win. I think it'll be a little bit of a struggle because we'll grow into the tournament. The more we play, the more mileage we'll get into people like Saka and Gordon and people that have, and Shaw, people that have been injured, the better. So I think it'll be tight, but I think we'll win and we'll qualify as top of our group.
Can we win the whole thing?
We can, but I'm not certain we will. France, Germany, Spain. You've got to overcome them. But I think we are in with them. But I mean, I always stand one short of saying that we're going to win, you know, because since 66, I've learned not to say that. And since 69, I've learned not to say that with Newcastle United. So I don't want to tempt fate, mate. But and also, I don't want to end my life because I'm going to stay alive until they both win something. So I don't want them to win something too quickly.
John, as always, absolute pleasure. Enjoy your week off next week. We will have Supermac doing another live Q&A next week. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. But anyone who gets along to Gateshead Leisure Centre, of course, will see you pre-match for the England games. But John, for now, thanks very much for your time, mate. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.